Hello and welcome to Armidale Regional Council's first foray into the world of podcast. I'm not really sure how this is all going to play out, but this is just one of the ways we're looking at to engage in a different way with our community and get information out there. And I must say it's coming from the fantastic Maker Lab space at the Armidale Regional Council Memorial Library. Some great gear here that anybody's able to use. And big hello to my podcaster today, Mayor of Armidale Regional Council, Councillor Sam Coupland. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks, James. Great to be here. And as you said, that we've got a fantastic setup. I suspect the equipment outstrips the talent at the moment, but
I think you're right.
It's something that we can certainly work our wards, work our way up.
How do you see this playing out today?
Today, I think a bit of backwards and forth. I think you're probably going to ask me a few questions, but I certainly want to get just a bit of background on you as probably what would be the most important man in Armidale and the only employee of the councillors. It's probably not bad if people understand what your role is, where you've come from, what you do, why you do it.
Well, you're way too kind, I say, but thank you. So do you want me to kick off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I've actually been in Armidale now for about 2.5 years in the role of General Manager. Thoroughly enjoying it. Married to the fair Pamela, or TFP as we like to refer to her within the Roncon clan. 3 adult kids. I've got 2 in Canberra and 1 in Melbourne, and don't really get to see enough of them. But of course, when we do get together, like most families, it's always we're always kind of happy to part ways until the very next time. So, yeah, and I think certainly for me coming into this role, lots of challenges, and I must say I'm incredibly proud of the organisation and the way we've taken those challenges on, and the response that we've had from the staffing group, absolutely sensational. And we've done a lot of work around culture, around values and behaviours, and it's really starting to pay off now. And I think we're starting to produce a local council that the community can be very proud of. And not everyone will agree with that, but I think by and large people have noticed a real difference in what we do and how we do it. And I think a big part of that has really been since the election of the new council back in when it was sworn in back in January 2022. You came on board as mayor. I'd be keen to see just how you're seeing things and how you'd sort of talk about or look back on your first 18 months in office as mayor.
Yeah, I won't let you off the hook as easily just yet, but I'll come back to it. But look, coming onto council has been a really interesting journey for me, and I suspect, like a lot of new councillors, understanding what the role is an important one. And I think certainly I did, I suspect some of the other councillors did, really thought that our role was going to be one that's a bit quasi what your role is as the general manager or CEO of council. We certainly hear a lot from the community on what needs to be done, but what we can do as councillors, it's important to understand this. Our role is one where we're effectively the board. We set the strategic direction of the organisation, and your role, James, as the general manager, is to implement, that direction. So, as a group of councillors, we don't wear the high vis. We don't decide which potholes get filled. We don't repair the footpaths. But what we do need to do is talk about what are the priorities, how are we going to be able to get the funding, what can we do to lobby, and how can we really reflect the community's concerns to the organisation that is council. So I think it's important that the community understand really what we do as councillors. We're not there, as I said, wearing the high vis. We're not the ones that approve the DAs or anything like that. Quite rightly, all of those things, whether it's driving heavy equipment or approving development applications, experts need to do it.
I reckon it's really interesting that you've been able to master and make that distinction so quickly too, because there are a number of councils around the state, and we know that there's about 134 across the state council entities, but some councillors can spend a lifetime learning that very trick. But I think it's a credit to you that connection was made. But And I think so important to be able to have that distinction too. And one of the things that's always played on my mind is just how important that relationship between the mayor and the general manager is, and then more broadly that conduit back to the council to ensure that the councillors are getting what they want. But yeah, I've always sort of used from time to time that the council doesn't need, in our case, a 12th councillor any more than it needs, a second to 12th general managers. So I guess understanding our specific roles and where we land in the sandpits that we play is incredibly important. But noting that in our particular roles there always is going to be that bit of crossover from time to time as well. And I've really think that we've done that well and managed that well over the first 18 months. Some of your big wins, what do you see as some of those in your first 18 months?
Oh, look, the first one was getting, with all of the councillors coming on board and, every single one, 11 of us deciding and agreeing that growth is essential. That's what's held this region back. We're flatlined for 20 years in terms of population. And as a result, we've gone backwards. Financially, we've been constrained in terms of vibrancy. That's been an issue. And I think the lack of vibrancy that we see, particularly in Armidale CBD, isn't a specific problem in terms of, say, the layout or anything like that. It's a symptom of a low population. If we had another 10,000 people, we'd have a far more vibrant region. And so for all 11 councillors to stand behind that growth agenda, we've say, let's attract another 10,000 people and frame that up as 4,000 jobs. And that happened in February last year. So we'd only been in our roles for a month. And to get that through was great. And it's just given us some real direction on where this region's going to go. And, as you're aware, just yesterday, we've spent some time, done a bit more work. Well, what does taking a population of 30,000 now look like to get that to 40,000, then ultimately on to 50,000, which is where we need to be. And I don't know why 40,000 seems like a magical number, but it's at that point that regions seem to go over a tipping point where they kick on. That's, once Tamworth hit 40,000, it flew. Orange was the same. And I think you just become big enough to generate your own gravitational pull for government resources, government funding, et cetera, et cetera. So, yep, that growth was important.
Was that a catalyst for your running, that sort of slow burn decline in lifestyle that you remembered as a kid, I imagine?
Yeah, that's right. I was here as a school kid and a uni kid, and I remember Armidale being a very vibrant place. And when we moved back here 10 years ago as a family, it was really noticeable, just the drop-off in vibrancy. And it was a frustration and probably a bit of a dent in pride. My wife's from Queensland. I was really excited to come back to Armidale, and, it can be a little bit of a hard sell if the region's not humming. And, when I was asked, would I run for council, the initial reaction of people is to say, when asked, to say no. But then I started to think about it, and I thought I can either be one of these people that bitch and moan from the sidelines, or I can crack on and have a shot. I'm not the sort of person who, will die wondering. And the more I got into it, it very quickly dawned on me that we did have a population that was too low. And that was something that I certainly pushed in my election campaign. I thought, if I'm going to run for this, I need to stand for something. I don't think it's good enough just as a councillor to stand for something really flaccid like a functional council. You need to actually want to do something and spell it out. In a way, if people were going to vote for me, I wanted them to know what I actually stood for. You can't be all things to all people. I realise growth isn't on everyone's agenda. But for me, I thought if we can get our population up, then all of those problems or symptoms of a low population will start to evaporate.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I am. I'm loving it. It's different to what I thought, which goes back to what we were saying before about what the actual role is. But it's great. I enjoy being on council. I think my fellow councillors, we've got a really representative group of councillors. So, it's a fair representation.
how do you manage it with your day job or day jobs?
Day jobs.
What's taking precedence?
Oh, naturally, in this podcast, clearly it's my role as mayor and as a councillor. Look, everything's a bit of a juggle. So, look, my day job, I'm a management advisor to law firms. I do that all around Australia and New Zealand. I've sort of got myself to a stage in my career where I can do that from anywhere. We've actually, since we moved to Armidale, I have effectively been working remotely. And one of the real attractions for Armidale was, at the time, this is back in 2012, there were 7 flights a day to Sydney. Now it's probably down to about 6. That's still pretty solid, and 1 flight to Brisbane. But all roads lead to Sydney. So, I was living in Sydney before we moved here. My professional career hasn't taken a backward step. So I juggle. I'm in the council building every day that I'm in Armidale, and I really work on that consulting thing in the evenings.
Yeah. And the family settled well? They enjoying life?
Yeah, they have. So we've got my wife, Caroline. She's working really from home. She's a lawyer with a disability support group. And I have 3 kids in school. So they're 16, 14 and 12.
Very good.
So we're well enmeshed in Armidale. And look, it was back in 2012. Our eldest was about to start school. I grew up near Nundle. Caroline's from North Queensland. We both wanted to bring kids up in the country. We're enjoying city life, but we wanted our kids to be raised in a similar way to what we were, just that slower pace. We looked around a number of different places. We looked at Orange, but didn't really have much of a connection there. We looked at the Southern Highlands as an option, but we weren't in our 70s, so that didn't really appeal as much. We also looked just north of Canberra, around Gundaroo, Gunning, and that could have worked quite well.
Yeah.
So Caroline at the time, she was a lawyer with ASIC, so she could have kept that ASIC job. But Armidale, whilst distance-wise was further away, it was those 7 flights a day. It was that easy connection to Sydney, and at the time the NBN had just come.
And great talking about airports, lovely segue into some recent changes and successes there. I mean, being able to maintain that level of those flights in and out, you must be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, look, many of the community probably won't know. It probably was becoming a bit of a close-run thing with the security screening out there, Rex and Link not being required to do it, Qantas with their larger planes being required to have the security screening, but rather than have a financial bun fight or a financial burden on the community, or probably even worse, the loss of some airlines, just the way that our airport's structured, we were able to open up that second gate, the non-screening gate, which means we've been able to keep all the services, not have a financial burden on the ratepayer, and happy days. There's no doubt that the airport, for us, whilst a regional airport, is a huge boon.
And I guess probably worth a bit of a shout out to Rex and Link too for their willingness to be part of that solution and put some coin up.
Well, absolutely no doubt about that. There were some members of your team that were leading those negotiations, but the fact that Rex and Link were, prepared to come to the party and help out just sort of shows what a good relationship council has with the airlines. But a commercial relationship, not a cosy one, but a commercial one, and that was a great outcome.
Now, I understand, and I've had the pleasure of seeing you in Lycra, so you're a cyclist?
Oh, yeah, I wear it when I'm cycling as well.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. That distinction is an important one, but you enjoy your cycling?
I do. That was something, I used to be a keen mountain biker before I got married, and this is when we were living in Sydney, and mountain biking's not one that's conducive to the early stages of marriage, because I used to vanish up into the Blue Mountains for a full day or a full weekend. So then I switched to road cycling, and I used to do a lot of that in Sydney. And those of you who might have seen me, I'm probably not built like your classic cyclist. I'm more more a sprinter, shall we say? But
Cavendish style.
yeah, I won't be taking on the. I certainly won't be winning the hill climb. But it's just amazing. This is one of the real positive changes, and I guess it's happening everywhere in regional Australia or throughout Australia, just the way cycling's taking off. But when I moved back here to Armidale, I probably had a couple of years where I didn't really ride much. Then COVID really kicked me into gear, and a bunch of mates, we go out at least every weekend, and the quality of cycling is pretty low, but the chat's excellent, and it's more about sanity management, and it's amazing just to see the number of cyclists here. I've tacked onto the back of the Armidale Cycling Club some of their rides every now and again, but their skill and talents beyond what I want to be doing. So yeah, an avid cyclist.
As an avid cyclist, yes, you would have had the opportunity to go over some of Armidale's finest roads and into other council areas, I guess, if you're going long distances.
Yes.
And the impact of the last 3 or 4 years with droughts and floods and lack of maintenance and stuff, was that a bit of a catalyst for you wanting to see more money put into infrastructure renewal?
I know the obvious answer to this question is to say yes, absolutely.
No, there's no conflicts.
No conflicts whatsoever. Probably not so much from a cycling point of view, but we drive a lot as a family, and we've gone through 2 sets of rims in our car, none of which occurred in the Armidale LGA.
That's good news.
Pleased to let you know. But look, the weather events, the drought, and then the extreme wet, and now God knows where, just played havoc everywhere. And I realise this is a little bit biased, but our roads are probably better than most of our neighbours. But still not good enough. We've got something like 1,200 kilometres of unsealed road.
Yes, that's right.
Which is something that stood out to me. So as a guy with a financial background and accounting qualifications, on our balance sheet of, assets in the, $1 and a bit billion worth of assets, most of those assets really should be in inverted commas because they are a road network.
Yeah, and right. More reliability.
More reliability, yes. 1,200 kilometres of dirt roads clearly is expensive to maintain and difficult to maintain, but, that's just the nature of regional councils.
Armidale Regional Council recently made an application, was successful for a special rate variation, obviously off the back of infrastructure challenges and more broadly resolving those and putting money back where it needs to be. How are you feeling about the outcome there and I guess the process that led us to where we ended up?
If someone had said to me before I ran for council, look, if you genuinely want to change this place and you genuinely want to fix it, you're going to have to increase the rates by 50%, I probably would have been reluctant to run. Who wants to be known as as a staunch capitalist, but with a soft heart, of course. The idea of putting up rates isn't something that delights me. But I've had the benefit, as have my fellow councillors, of being walked through the process and understanding in quite a deep detail about why it needed to happen. So it was probably landed on me within 4 months of coming into council that if we are going to change this place, we need to have the money to do it. And then with my various forays down to Macquarie Street and also to Canberra, you realise that the state government plays favourites with councils. They see winners and they see losers, and our region has been a loser for 20 plus years. We've historically been, and put aside the fractious nature of council and all of those things, but we've always been a council that's scraped by. And people would say to me, "Oh, look, why doesn't council just live within its means?" Well, and again, that's the sort of thing that I might have said not being informed, but it's important to understand that council isn't a business. I'm a businessman. I own 2 businesses. I advise businesses. I'm pretty familiar with behaving like how a business should. And if you've got an underperforming area in a business, you either sell it off or shut it down. Now, I know we made mention of regional roads or our rural road network, the dirt road network. We don't have that luxury. I mean, probably could. We could close 600 kilometres worth of dirt roads.
That'd go down well.
Yeah, wouldn't it? But which then indicates council isn't a business, it's a service. It's a quasi-business, quasi-service. And once people start to get their head around that, then, that changes the nature of things. So I've had the benefit of being of better understanding, which comes with the role. My fellow councillors have been the same. We went out to the community, and that was never a fun thing, because if someone had said, not only will council have to increase the rates by 50%, but you're going to have to be the guy that fronts it and sells it to the community 6 months into your term, pretty tough pill to swallow. But, I signed up to change this region for the better, because I know what can be done. I realise I'm being quite circular here. We have to get out of being a loser council. We have every regional council breaks even by not spending money. And all councils in our region, even former council, the old former Armidale Jimerick and former Guyra as well, always broke even. They just didn't maintain their assets and everything started to fall apart. Regional councils everywhere are doing that. But probably more so, this is about playing favourites with talent, we needed to have some money not just to maintain our assets, which there was a recurrent underspend of about $7.8 million per annum, which means things are starting to fall apart. But it meant that we couldn't invest in amenities as well. Yeah. So grant funding opportunities will be around, but because governments want to play favourite with talent, if you don't have some money to make a co-contribution, then the funding opportunities narrow. And so we need to be able to participate in grant funding. We've got to be able to pony up some of our own cash as well. And that's important to grow this region.
I remember probably early on in your term when we were doing the first budget, one of the former finance managers used the term, if you put 2 donkeys together, you don't necessarily get a racehorse, which I think is a pretty good analogy to use. So I guess where we are now, I guess, we've gone through that process that you talked about. Survey's been approved. So right here, right now, how are you feeling about your last 18 months and are you kind of happy with where things are at, or you think things could have gone a bit quicker?
No, I think we've been pretty good. You asked me early on, what are some of the wins, and again, this is my failing for rabbiting on a bit too much. But I am comfy because we have had some wins. We've set a strategic direction that's been embraced not just by the councillors but by the council as an organisation. I think genuinely the community as a whole, there's a realisation that we need to grow. So that's been good. We have the funding for some of our water security. So we've received the funding to raise Malthus Dam wall. We've purchased Oakey Dam, so we now have the water security for a population of 55,000 plus. Now, admittedly, there's a bit more investment that needs to happen around Oakey, but that's all right. We can crack on with that. One of the things that I've really enjoyed, and I've been around a bit, and you realise just sort of how connected you might be and the connections you picked up over the years. And one thing I have really enjoyed is the lobbying. Lobbying government for funds and some other things has been really good. So I think I'm able to get some wins there that may not have been as easy for others to get. So we've got the water secured. I think that's been a great thing. We've got our finances shored up. That's been a great thing. I think it's onwards and upwards here. We've got a few other things that are going to fall out in this council term that I see as positives. There's going to be a lot of challenges to manage down the track, though. The big one is the renewable energy zone. What does that really mean? I suspect most of the community are unaware about what that really means, what that impact is. And it's going to be one of those things that's very polarising. You're going to have a group of people that are really enthusiastically for it. You're going to have some people that are absolutely dead set against it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have, I think, the vast majority that is somewhat agnostic. But that's going to be a thing, not for council as an organisation to manage, because there are rules around that. And the renewable energy zone is it's either state significant infrastructure with the transmission lines or state significant development with the wind and solar projects that pop up. Council in a way has been a little bit sidelined there, but there's a role that council can play. But as civic leaders, and in my role as a mayor, managing the the inevitable friction that comes about in the community is going to be one challenge, but also to make sure that as a region we can get some benefit from this. And I've set up a few things that are going to assist in that I'd really like to see through. So one of the things we have been able to do is to get the mayors of the other councils in our New England renewable energy zone together to take a consistent approach to it. And then we've also got the mayors from the Central West Arana Res and now the Hunter Renewable Energy Zone together. So we've got a group we call ourselves the Coalition of Renewable Energy Mayors. And as a lobbying group, that's been really, really powerful. So with the Department of Planning and Environment and Energy Co. and also the ministers as well, it's been a good thing. So I'm enjoying that, and I think there's a lot more to play out with that, and done well, we can end up with a great result. This region's going to look radically different in 10 years' time.
I'd agree with you. Just on the res stuff, I mean, I think, a lot of people can be quite critical, sometimes they don't see the stuff that does go on in the background. And I know you've just mentioned a couple of those things, but, for those that don't know, you really have been a significant leader in terms of that renewable energy space and bringing all of those disparate groups together. The Arana group, the Central West group, they're down into that Wagga region, southern New South Wales, and of course the New England region. I think it's incredibly important that people understand that the role that you have played actually single-handedly in bringing all of those mayors and all those councils together to form this really powerful group now that is talking and singing from the same hymn sheet and not allowing the renewable energy companies to play one off against the other or one region off against the other. So I think that, whilst I know it would not be for you to brag about that or skite about it, I think it's an incredibly important thing that people understand and know just what you have done in that space. And which started, of course, with, as you mentioned, the 5 mayors from around the New England region and just that statement of expectations and getting people on the same page. So kudos to you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thanks, Mr. General Manager. I'll take the compliment.
No, you're welcome. So I guess moving forward, what are you saying? What do you want your next 18 months to look like, or at least probably moving into September next year when the council elections happen?
I'd really like to see the amenities in this region start to improve. And I don't mean roads and footpaths, that's certainly some of it, but I'd like to see us become a more vibrant place. So maybe I'll kick that timeline out a little bit. But I'd like to see more, integrated cycling and walking, more connections there. I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see the creeklands look smarter. I would like to see our CBD becoming more vibrant. Yeah. So better planning around that. Let's get more people into it. I'd like to see the rail trail happen sooner rather than later. And I know that, it's a council working away at that. There's some barriers with the state government. But if I was to sort of, in a nutshell, describe what I see our region being, I see it as the thinking person's Queenstown. I see us as an adventure capital.
No.
An adventure capital. We've got so much here on our doorstep that's underutilised. And so that's not taking away the special things that we already have. So we've got a very strong and vibrant, arts community, drama community, et cetera, But the one thing that we haven't capitalised on are our natural resources. We point to a gorge and say, let's go and have a look at that. So I see us as being a place with, we're currently hosting some mountain bike championships later in the year, but I see us as being the place to come for mountain biking. We've got some great mountain biking at UNE. I'd like to see the Pine Forest reconfigured into a top-notch mountain biking area as well. The rail trail taking us from Armidale through to Glen Innes, 103 kilometres, that'll just go off like a frog in a sock. I've ridden these things before, and the first time I ever rode a rail trail, I was amazed. Not just the number of people that were there, but just what a great amenity it is. And it's not just for riders, it's for walkers, et cetera, et cetera. That'll fundamentally change the region as well. So I see us as being quite a sporty area, with cycling as a real point of difference. And that's the important thing. We have to have points of difference. I see with Malthus Dam being raised, that wall going up and the capacity of Malthus going from its, doubling effectively from 13 gigalitres to 27. I see that as being a bit of a sporting hub as well. So there is an opportunity to put in the 2-kilometre rowing course there and doing that really properly. So having it as a rowing and regatta centre, kayaking centre. I also would like to make it more accessible. So with walking trails around there, picnics out there at the moment, there's a locked gate. So really utilising what is a great asset for more than just drinking water. So that becoming really vibrant as well, that can be a huge attraction. So that's, highland or high altitude training for rowing, cycling, etc., and also recreational use, obviously. Yeah, I think this place is going to, from an amenity point of view, will really hum.
There's some real genuine excitement amongst the user groups about this precinct too, just in terms of what can be. And someone was only saying the other day that Armidale sits higher than Jindabyne, and there's a sort of world-class high-performance coaching or training area out there. So, it just begs, with the right kind of investment and the right attitude and the right levels of advocacy, those opportunities will just be abound. I think someone's got to be prepared to take them.
Well, that's right. We need to let people know that the opportunity is here. He's here. Come and talk to us. The door's open. Well, 32 minutes, James. That probably went for longer than we thought.
That went for a lot longer than we thought, Sam, I've got to say. But so we probably should wrap it up there, I guess. For us moving forward, if this is welcomed, this type of discussion and engagement is certainly something we'd like to, or even if it's not, it's certainly something we've had a good time. Certainly something that we'll do a fair bit more of, I imagine. And once we get the tech sorted and we work it all out, we may even be able to have some theme song and some
you'd be mad.
Applause and gongs and I think sorts of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And there'll be the merch available.
Yes, yeah.
That's key to anything. You've made it when there's merch, and you've really made it when people wear it.
Even if it is only you and I.
Sure.
But I think also probably got to think up a bit of a name for this. So I'm sure we'll come up with something. The comms boffins will do that for us.
Yeah, and we could do something. Take feedback from the community. But I see this as the first of many.
I do too, and that feedback from the community would be a great idea if we could work out how to do that. But anyway, notwithstanding all of that, thanks, Sam. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing this time with you. I've really enjoyed it. And just to mention again, we've got this great Maker Lab space at the Armidale Regional Memorial Library. This gear is absolutely fantastic. It's free to use. Just need to make an appointment and come in and fill your boots and do what you got to do. So thank you for listening, and until next time, adios.
Bye all.